that the DNA analysis that was found inside the house links, even though it's not conclusive, some of his regions DNA of accused 4 is being read. How could I not now? How could I stand there, my lord, and believe that was never in the house? Taking into account the exhibit that I know, taking into account forensic and objective scientific evidence that places part of his DNA inside the house.
The understanding, Brigadier, that accused number 4, Mr. Maphisa, entered the house. You got it from the inadmissible confession of accused number 2, which could not be used against my client.
Yes, the presence of his name, my lord, came in from that confession, and then subsequently investigation was done and other evidence was collected, my lord. I've made mention, for example, of Constable Zungu, for example. But prior to that, my lord, there was already a statement of Kwabeni. It was already sitting in the docket, who also mentions accused number 4.
This understanding that you got from the statement, the confession statement of accused number 2, did you follow it up with the witnesses? Did you obtain any statement? Because I'm raising this. None of the witnesses mentioned this in their statement, even in court, when they were led by my learned colleague for the state. There is no evidence directing to the fact that a dead suspect entered the house after the 2 had entered. It's only coming up from you, Brigadier, from your investigation.
The witnesses, and I'll go back, the witness inside the house indicate that after the first shot was fired, they ran away, my lord. Going back to them to ask what happened after that, my lord, how will they know? It's logic, my lord, that they will not know.
Now, what just happened? So let's take a look at this clip. Let's break it down and analyze it. You know, there is a lot that was really going on here. So Brigadier Gininda was trying to convince the court that Maphisa was inside the Kumalo house when the crime occurred. He says, you know, the DNA evidence links Maphisa to the scene, but he then admitted that the match is not complete. So Advocate Nxumalo then asked a key question: where did this idea come from that Maphisa entered the house? You know, Gininda replied that it came from a confession that was made by Bongani Ntanzi. But here's the issue. That confession, you know, it cannot be legally be used against Maphisa. You heard Advocate Nxumalo saying, you know what, that confession is inadmissible. But it seems like we're playing games here. What is really going on? Because Judge Rata actually ruled in trial within a trial that the confessions themselves are actually admissible. So where is Advocate Nxumalo getting this idea from that confession in itself is inadmissible? So after doing some cross-checking, you know, because I wanted to see who is correct and who is wrong here, because Judge Rata actually ruled that the confessions themselves, they are admissible, and Brigadier Gininda is coming in and is using that confession made by Bongani Ntanzi against Maphisa. But Nxumalo is arguing and saying, you know what, that confession is inadmissible. So what is actually happening is that, yes, Judge Rata did indeed rule that the confessions are admissible, but they can only be used against the accused who made them. So these confessions can only be used against Bongani Ntanzi, not against Maphisa. So when Advocate Nxumalo is saying that this confession cannot be used against Maphisa, he is actually correct. It cannot legally be used against Maphisa. It can only be legally be used against Bongani Ntanzi. So here Advocate Nxumalo actually highlighted, you know, that Brigadier Gininda's entire basis for placing Maphisa in the house is built on evidence that does not apply to him legally. So this is a big win for the team defense here. They just exposed, Brigadier Gininda. The team state they just lost massive points. So in this round goes to the defense, because what Gininda was trying to do there in using that confession against Maphisa, it cannot be done. It cannot be done that way. So let's move on to the next round. So Brigadier Gininda's language around the DNA now, it was very careful. He said it links Maphisa to the crime scene, but he quickly admitted that it's not conclusive. He explains, that some of his regions matched, and mentions Note 16, which likely refers to the DNA markers needed for a full profile. So this tells us that the DNA evidence isn't solid proof. It's more like a vague suggestion. So in a murder trial, it's not enough. You need DNA that screams, it's him, not DNA that whispers, maybe. You don't want that. So the bigger problem, obviously, we touched it, when Ngumalo asked where the idea of Maphisa being inside the house is coming from. And Gininda said it came from Bongani Ntanze's confession. But legally, we saw that that confession cannot be used against Maphisa. So it means the entire basis for saying Maphisa entered the house, it's coming from a source the court must ignore. It's like building your whole case on quicksand. It looks solid at first, but it quickly collapses under pressure. So Advocate Ngumalo didn't stop there. He kept on pressing and pushing further and further. Then asked Brigadier Gininda if he followed up with witnesses to confirm the story from that confession, even if it's inadmissible to Maphisa. It's like, okay, the confession, we've seen that it's inadmissible, but did you even do a follow-up? Then Gininda says no, and his excuse, is that the witnesses ran away, and probably wouldn't have known anyway. So, but the court, does it work like that way, Because we don't want a guessing game, You don't skip an investigation and then say it's logical. You go out there and get the evidence. That's what justice demands, not shortcuts. Because this is like an assumption, Obviously, we heard Zandile Khumalo saying, I ran to the bathroom. But what if in the process of running to the bathroom, she may have seen Maphisa entering the house? So that's the question that could have been posed to Gininda, to say, you skipped the investigation based off of an assumption that the witnesses ran away and didn't see Maphisa probably entering the house. It's like, I think when you're doing an investigation, you should not leave any gaps. You should do a thorough investigation, and leave no stone unturned. So, watching this, my reaction, I expected the prosecution to have strong verified evidence, through Brigadier Gininda. But instead, we got a confession that's inadmissible, a DNA that is incomplete, and when the defense asked if they checked with actual witnesses, Gininda basically shrugged, that's not confidence inspiring. So I was thinking, like, is this all you got, Gininda? Because it sounds like they built the case backwards, starting with the conclusion, and then somehow hoping that something is going to stick out there. So overall, for this clip, for this part, Advocate Ngumalo absolutely had a stronger argument. His questions were sharp, factual, and forced Gininda to admit, that the foundation for his case is somewhat weak. So that's what I was seeing, from this, and the research combining with the research that I then did in regards to the admissibility of the evidence. So I'll catch you guys on the next one.